Welcome to Alt Script. My name's JK.
And my name is Ria, and this is a podcast of two second-gen Korean creatives that left our dream jobs to live life on our own terms.
And today we've got episode 4. We're going to be talking about life immediately after quitting our dream jobs. And we're going to spend this time sort of reflecting on what went through our minds as we left. If you wouldn't mind starting us off, Ria, just sharing a bit about what you felt and how you processed everything immediately after.
Yeah, for sure. So I know like before in a previous episode, we talked about like what it was like the day we left, but definitely afterwards was a whole journey of really like, it felt like an emotional roller coaster, right? Because I was so burnt out that I didn't want to necessarily think about anything like next steps. I think I was very much so concerned about just coming to terms with what I was feeling right then and there, like being very present. So yeah, I think that was like my main goal, like for the month right after quitting, was like just focusing on how I currently felt at that time and place in my life. And so it was really hard, to be honest, because anytime I saw a friend, they'd be like, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I'm trying not to think about that quite yet. Which, you know, they're really kind to be like, oh yeah, like no worries. Like you don't need to have it all figured out now. I'm like, yeah, I think like how I mentioned prior, there's still a lot of grieving that was happening, right? So letting myself sit in that a bit of like the parts that I lost of myself. In the like last year of working at the agency. And so, yeah, I just really took time of like a lot of journaling, to be honest.
Okay.
Just to process, okay, like what were the things that I felt like I didn't have time to process when I was working there. So I was journaling a lot about like, you know, when grandpa passed away, when my mother-in-law passed away, like, you know, things like that, like infertility journey. Like I was just like taking a lot of precious time to just sit in those areas of my thought life, because I felt like I couldn't give it the time that it needed prior. So yeah, it was a lot of grieving. I felt definitely lost in a sense of like lost in the sense of everyone around me felt like they knew what they're doing, at least in the sense of like work wise, and I was just kind of there floating and like sitting in my emotions of many emotions. I don't know. Like even now I'm like, what was I feeling during that time? It was sad. It was also exciting all at the same time. Like, of course there was like this huge relief that felt off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
I was really glad not to be woken up by like 30 Slack messages. Like I finally got to like sleep in, and not like when I opened my eyes, I wasn't like stressed out about all the things I needed to catch up on. Like my body definitely started feeling a little bit more regulated with my cortisol. Like I'm like, okay. Like my mornings definitely became more pleasant. Started off my day a bit more intentionally too. Like taking my own quiet time to like really reflect, okay, what am I going to do today? The things that I, you know, want to focus on, like even chores. That was a big thing I just picked up back. Like, cause I'm like, I didn't have time to really do house chores well. Too. So like, you know,
I understand that.
Yeah. So that was me like right after.
You mentioned, when you saw your friends, there was a level of sort of comparing and anxiety, around what you should be doing next. Was that like a sort of consuming thought, or was that something that, you know, was a little bothersome, but you were able to sort of get over, you know, comparing yourself to like everyone else who seemed like they had life under control?
Yeah, like it wasn't necessarily all consuming. It was just that moment of like, oh, like that's what culture cares about. What are you doing next? And I knew that because I knew that they didn't have bad intentions in asking me those things. Like I knew it came from a really well-intentioned place because they care about me, right? But I just knew, oh, that's such like a cultural script. And that's the part where I was like, like Why do I need to have an answer for that right now?
Right. Yeah. And I think we were talking about this yesterday when we were at the beach, but it is this societal sort of expectation that you go from, you went from this high paying, amazing, successful job and you left that job so that you could go and do an even more successful, other thing.
Yeah.
But what society doesn't really feel comfortable hearing about is the in-between, the middle. It's not always the case that you go from one thing to the next seamlessly.
Yeah.
And it's amazing if you are able to pull that off. But for most people, it's not as seamless. No. And during that sort of in-between period, it's almost like you need you feel like you need to remove yourself from the rest of society so that you can take this time privately. Yeah. One, because you want to do that privately, but also because you almost feel like you need to make yourself a social recluse so that, people don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Definitely. Did you feel that?
For sure. And I totally agree. This in-between part is just definitely not glamorous. It's not sexy. No one wants to brag about the fact that they don't have the answers. Hence why we probably don't hear many conversations around this right now.
Right.
In general. But then we definitely hear it from personal conversations that we have with people that have gone through it. And you're like, oh, you also went through that? And you're like, okay, in those private conversations, that type of stuff comes out, which is really amazing. But yeah, we're being public about it right now. But to your question, what was it again?
I was just asking whether or not you found yourself, comparing, but also, I was just making a comment about how society sort of expects this, this seamless transition. Yeah. But obviously we're sharing this in between, where, we're still going through it.
I remember.
We haven't figured
the recluse
out.
part, you having to pull yourself away.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely did that. I definitely did that to an extent where I was like, okay, I'm purposely not going to see people that often, even though I have more time on my hands, because I really valued that time period as sacred. Of I need to protect this time period for me. My priority right now is me coming back to health. And that means not having so many interactions that I know I can assume and predict that they'll be asking about what's next or ask why did you really leave? Your agency and get into that, which I also didn't want to do. Right. Yeah. Because it was too fresh as well. Sure. I was like, I'm not ready to, unpack that quite yet. So definitely super intentional about I'm only going to see certain people so much during this month off. Yeah. Yeah. So what about you? What was it right after? Because you left. Because I remember you mentioned something about COVID happening right after. Yeah. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit more. Yeah.
So because I left, I resigned immediately before COVID. And because during COVID, the world shut down. And I was in the States at the time, working on a legal tech startup, had to fold that, went back to my parents' place in New Zealand, and I was in my childhood home. And, because of COVID, I didn't have to sort of worry about not interacting with others.
You're already safeguarded.
I was isolated, yes. But I think that was one thing that I found really difficult because, my personality, I love being around people. I sort of, love the social interaction. So sort of going the opposite was really tricky, but almost necessary. It was what I needed. I needed that time alone to reflect and really sit with everything. So I'm glad in a way that COVID sort of forced my circumstances, the environment forced me to take that moment for myself. And during that time, I think, I kept myself busy. I had, did a lot of meditating. I did a lot of, walks, took a lot of baths, read a lot of books, took all these online courses. But all of that really I did because I needed something to help me sort of reflect, sort of settle down a bit, come off the high, the adrenaline of like running for so long, sprinting for so long. And I needed, in order to, force this pause, to take this mental break, I needed to sort of, activate all of these different activities. I know it sounds crazy, but, as an extrovert, I think extroverts would understand what I'm saying here. Like, I needed to put and implement all of these different exercises to try and sort of wind down, do all these introverted activities that I wasn't used to doing. Exactly. Yeah. And during that time, I think it was really interesting. It was really eye-opening because I sort of realized that everything that I was doing up until that point in my life was geared towards productivity. Everything was about what is the outcome you want to achieve and what steps are you taking in order to achieve that. And this was almost the first time in my adult life where I was doing things without an outcome in mind. I didn't have to be good at, design. I didn't have to be good at the French language courses I was picking up again. I didn't have to finish a book by a certain time. And so allowing myself the freedom to be able to sort of explore without sort of conditions attached, that really helped sort of me realize the emotions I was feeling during that whole process. Because otherwise I would have been so preoccupied with, finishing and completing said tasks that I wouldn't have been able to feel the feels of that journey. But I did. And I think that's what eventually sort of allowed me to tap into my creative interests. And then I was able to explore different sort of opportunities, such as applying for design school, really sort of digging into design thinking and, understanding what I wanted to do within the design space, not as a creator, but as a business person in that space. And that got me really excited again. But again, because of COVID, there was so many different restrictions. I felt like, I want to do so many new things, but I couldn't because of the circumstances. And so I ended up sort of staying in that space of, the unknown and still trying to, figure things out for a lot longer than I thought. Yeah.
Well, that's cool though. Like, I like what you're saying of like, in the time where you were forcing yourself to slow down and to reflect, like from that place and like no expectations, like your creativity kind of surfaced out of that.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. It's like you got to do what you wanted to do deep down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's funny because had it not been for COVID, I'd planned to travel the world and like party and like really just sort of enjoy the freedom and then get into another really intense job in legal tech and, but I'm so happy that it didn't play out that way. Because I don't know, I mean, I probably would have repeated the same cycle, the same habitual sort of, get back on the hamster wheel, let's like pump out and, sort of hit goals and targets. I would have done the same things that I was doing before all over again. And that wasn't the point. That wasn't the point of leaving.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and I guess that's kind of like the blessing in disguise when COVID happened. It kind of just forced everyone into stillness. Because you're like, a lot of distractions have now been kind of taken away from us.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, you talk about, values alignment.
Yeah.
For me, I wasn't even at that point where I was thinking about my values. Like I wasn't aware. Like I never really thought about it, I was so willing and ready to sell my soul to the corporate world that I was like willing to do it again, whoring it out,
Oh my God.
But I think like, and so during this time after I quit, it was really the first time I was like, actually, no, like, what is it that you want to do in life? Like, what do you value?
I love that.
And it was confronting because I had realized at that point that I hadn't thought about that in a very long time, And I think obviously it's an important thing to think about.
Yeah.
Because this is your life we were talking about,
Yeah. Were there any like certain, let's see, like books that you're reading or activities that you're engaging in that you remember like that was the thing that made you really like think or feel inspired to like look into
at the time I was like listening to a lot of TED Talks, as you do.
Yes, you do.
As one does, maybe, I don't know. Especially when you're feeling a lack of like inspiration and you're wanting to sort of, when you're like in search of, answers.
Yeah.
But also listen to a lot of Jay Shetty podcasts, read a few Brene Brown books. I guess I was reading a lot of literature in self-help, self-discovery, sort of, because
awesome.
it was timely for me. I needed that guidance, and as someone who enjoys structure, I needed that structure to be given to me through those books as well. So yeah, for me, those two come to mind very quickly, and obviously I was reading a lot of novels and sort of biographies as well. But I think the books that really helped me to sort of reflect on my life and my priorities and my values, I think that was very helpful. And that's something that I recommend. And I was recommending that to a lot of people at the time. I paid for some courses as well. So it wasn't like, it wasn't some light reading. I was like really
okay.
like,
you're
deep
into self-discovery.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome that you did that for yourself.
Yeah.
You knew what you needed.
Yes.
In that
somewhat.
sense, to get you to this place.
Yeah. Well, I just knew that being complacent or like wallowing in the sadness of like leaving or like having a bit of a breakdown wasn't conducive to me moving forward.
That's fair.
So again, like this productivity mindset.
Like,
it's like, what do I need to do in order to get to the next? But I knew that something was missing.
Yeah.
I knew that like I needed to feel something in my heart in order to feel like the next thing I was doing was purpose driven and that I could muster up the energy. Because by that point I was depleted. I was exhausted, and I think I was so burnt out without me even realizing that, it was only in the moments where I was just like lying in bed, not doing anything, not wanting to do anything, when I started to realize how tired I was. How much I had actually given to my career.
Yeah. That's real.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there were multiple penny drop moments where I realized, okay, well, the only thing that's actually going to get you out of bed is like working towards something where that this is going to give you joy and satisfaction. But one thing I will say is I'm still working on that. like 5 years later. I'm still figuring it out. And I didn't think that it was going to take this long. You know, I didn't think that I would have to sit with this level of discomfort, like not knowing, you know, the financial like instability, not knowing where your money's going to come from next, sort of this journey of self-discovery. I mean, it's taking forever. And I'm not used to things taking this long.
Some say it's a lifelong journey. I'm just kidding. You're like, it better not take my whole life.
It better not be. But no, I understand that. I think that actually makes sense. You know, it's not something, you know, I appreciate that for some people, for a lot of people, they never get to this point.
Yeah, that's
you know, they
true.
never find the thing that they're meant to be living for. So I get that it might take a long time. I accept that.
Yeah. And I love, like, as you're sharing too, it just really shows your type of personality as well, of like how, like, with your personality, your approach to a time of rediscovery is like doing more activities to help you, guide you into that place, which I think is like, it's so funny. We are very different.
Yeah.
In that sense. I'm just sitting and journaling and like,
I mean, I do that too.
and pondering, but I never crossed my mind to take a course.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There are some really good ones if you want any recommendations.
But definitely there's a difference of approach, I guess. Which is, because what's your Myers-Briggs again? Your ESTJ?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am an ESTJ.
And an INFJ. So we're very, very different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
But
we're both planners though.
Yeah, there's probably that side. Yeah, for sure, where we're very similar. But I
It's
definitely
probably
didn't do it the way you did it.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I mean, the planning part,
Yeah.
that does show because that's probably how we were able to put this together.
That's fair. Yeah. That's true.
Action driven.
We do have some similarities. Yeah.
Yep.
No, but I like kind of like even on that too of like when you're in this space of not really knowing what's next, right? You're just more focused on yourself and like more internal reflection, a season of just internal like discovery, like as you're saying. Like you just really uncover a lot of deep stuff about yourself that you're like, whoa, like I didn't know that was a core reason why, you know, maybe I was operating and pursuing like a dream or a career or like a status out of a place of potentially like of brokenness or dysfunction or, you know, trauma. And like you just really go through this like period of like, whoa, okay, you are very confronted with like yourself. And I think that's like as messy and uncomfortable that season is, it's truly beautiful because it's like, oh, I never really gave myself enough time in this context to let myself get to know myself. You know?
You know, a lot of what I was doing during that time as well was sort of self-healing. And I remember like I wrote on my bathroom mirror, you are enough. It was one of the things that was recommended, I think, by maybe Jay or Renee. But I did that and I would look at it every day. And it sort of, you know, at first I sort of, I don't know, chuckled because, you know, I was embarrassed. I don't know. It was cringy. But then there were these days or these moments where I'd look at it and go, huh, you know, it's interesting how little that actually resonates with me. Like it didn't really hit. And I knew that was a problem. You know, how do those words that should be so obvious and sort of, I don't know, something that like you don't question, how does that not really sit with you?
Yeah. Like you don't believe it for yourself.
Yeah. And then I realized, like it's not something that I think I allowed myself to feel.
Yeah.
And I never really accepted about myself.
Yeah, totally.
And then, you know, I mean, not to sort of dive into, you know, my sort of psychological state, but
You can.
I mean, we are sharing a lot.
You can.
It made me realize, oh, I don't really give myself enough credit. I am my worst enemy because I critique myself the harshest. And I don't think at that time I was thinking, I don't think I truly value and love the life that I've been given. So it was confronting.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah, it was very, I think, emotionally confronting as well.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that of like, a simple, truthful affirmation that everyone should accept as truth, right? Because everyone is enough. Everyone is worthy, priceless, whatnot. Yeah, to be made aware that that you don't really believe that truth, it is super confronting. And like I like definitely resonate with that. And like when, you know, right after quitting, one of the main thought that kept coming into my mind that I was having to battle out was like, you're not doing enough. Because like you're saying, I'm so used to being very productive, you know, like, like really, really productive. So to do a hard stop, it's like, whoa, like I need to be doing something. And then it made me ask, why? Why, Rhea, do you feel like you need to do more? What is it that you're trying to prove? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Like, who is telling you that you need to do more? Because Alex isn't expecting that out of you. Your own family is not expecting that out of you. So who's saying that, you know? And I think that made me really reflect of like, okay, where did I pick up this line that I'm not doing enough? And I think I had to like really be like, I had to correct that. Like you're saying, like I am enough. And so the things I do should be an overflow from that truth rather than me trying to prove that I am enough. Right. And I was like, I knew I had to like switch that. And so I was like, oh, when did these like, I call them lies, right? People call it like your inner critic or whatever. There's so many different names for it. But I'll say like those lies, I'm like, where did I pick this up? And I realized it was getting picked up from social media, from like just little side conversations I overhear what my friends are talking about. Like there's something in the air, at least for sure here, of like, you need to do more. You have to have a side hustle. Like you know, it's like, it's weird if you don't, like, you know, like you're not maximizing or whatever your time. And yeah, and I was like, wow, I actually don't subscribe to this. And maybe this is why I was starting to feel also more burnt out. Cause I'm like, I was like subconsciously subscribing to a lie that I didn't believe in with my core beliefs. And so I was like trying to make that happen. But not to like write off that like me being productive and being capable of high productivity is a bad thing. But it was just leading me in a direction or like, and it wasn't like based in a healthy place. I guess that's a better way to say it. I wasn't being productive out of a place of me knowing I was enough. I was being productive to be enough.
Right.
And I think that was like a really big like eye opener for me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we're redefining how we approach our work, our ambitions, just life in general. Do you think that there's been a shift through all of this that you've come to realize about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. You know, that period of like deep reflection right after quitting and all these like deeper questions being surfaced, it definitely led me to redefine what I view as success, or redefine what I should be working for. And definitely made me rethink of, okay, I don't want to approach work only just for finances. That's for sure. I was like, not doing that again. Finances is necessary, of course, but that's not going to be my main driver anymore because I know that's not me. That's not my wiring. It definitely reframed how I wanted to use my creativity. It was like, I'm not going to be a creative director so that my name and my brand could be well known. I was like, I don't want that either. I want to use my creativity to help support or help build something that I align with my values. So it's like, okay, rather than creativity and being a creative director is like the place where I land, it's like, no, that's my tool to get to where I want to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. I mean, you're trying to align your values with what you can offer to in this industry.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And, values alignment it makes sense that would lead to more greater satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with that, it's like, it became very clear to me that also, a successful life for me also might look different than the people around me. And coming to terms with that, of like being okay with being different too. Of like being okay about not caring about the same things everyone around me. Am I saying that right? Everyone else around me cares about. I'm like, I need to be okay with that. And I realized I was actually pretty insecure about that when I moved back to California. It's like, oh, I need to care about what everyone else is caring about.
Yeah,
I was definitely like a sheep following
No.
everyone. I was like, wait, no, I shouldn't do that.
I definitely feel that way when people talk about shares, the stock market. And like, I'm like, oh gosh, that's an area that I'm not that knowledgeable in. And I've never really cared to sort of look into properly. But then it kind of makes you feel like, oh, you're so behind because you don't have like an impressive portfolio.
Wait, so then for you, how did that time of reflection and discovery or rediscovery like redefine what success was for you?
Yeah. I'm thinking to sort of more recent times when I think about that. But I had some health issues with my vocal cords, and I had to have surgery a couple of times. And earlier this year, I had my second surgery, and I really sort of had to put my health above everything. I guess, I think I spent a long time sort of not really prioritizing my health. Always thinking that, maybe I was invincible and, it really took a backseat.
Yeah.
But, this year, everything has been focused around, is this going to, be a detriment to my health? Is it going to, help me with my recovery? So, I've been on a journey, let's say that, sort of, you're taking a step back from certain work that I've been doing to ensure that I'm, giving myself the best chances of recovery, but also, sort of making sort of changes in my life, whether it be, getting sober. That was a big step. And also, making sure that if I'm not exhausting myself because of work, because of, career, needs and advancements, like I would have in the past. It's a big shift for me. Maybe it's not something that's, groundbreaking for a lot of people because most people are good with health. But yeah, for me, it took some conscious effort.
So health has taken a big factor in how you view success and what you're going to move towards in the future?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I won't jeopardize my health in order to achieve it.
Okay,
because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
That's true.
Right?
There's no point.
What's the point? Yeah. Yeah, there's no point in anything really, if you're not going to survive and live to enjoy everything.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you're not like 50 or 60 with a heart attack and that's what causes you to stop. You know, thankfully you're able to make that shift and prioritize health earlier. I mean, you're still young.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. So I do think I consider this a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because it's not a life threatening sort of condition that I've got, but it's definitely always there. And it's a good reminder that when I don't treat my body well, it won't put up with it. And I'm not able to effectively do all of the work that I need to in order to progress in my career and my life. Yeah.
I love that our body does that for us. It'll scream at us to stop doing whatever's not healthy.
Yeah, it didn't used to. Maybe we just got into that
just
point.
Because we're getting older.
Yeah, let's not say old. We're not old. Yeah, so I think maybe it sort of brings us to our the discussion around what maybe we're still sort of dealing with, that we're finding a bit difficult, and how are we coping with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's more fresh for me than it is for you. So there are still things I'm very much going through still. Like a lot of those thoughts are still being, contemplated and, processed. But yeah, like currently, the main struggle that I think I'm still going through is a big pause because I am processing this very question right now. It's like, it still is like, how am I really redefining that's like, what is success to me? Do I actually want that part of my vocabulary anymore? I think that's what it is. I'm like, I don't know if I really want that vocabulary to be a part of my life. Success.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. Because, I mean, by all objective measures, we've already achieved it.
Yeah.
It's already sort of, if you sort of, look to the measures that people generally talk about, it's money, it's title, a certain position in society. If you've hit all of that, then you've really succeeded, right?
Yeah, at least, to my standards, I guess. Yeah, so it's like, I don't even know if that's what I even want to go towards anymore. It's
right.
I just want to do things that make me thrive and help other people thrive. That's it. I think that's the part where I'm like, okay, then, what should that look like? And I'm like having to extrapolate any societal like lies that have like come in that still have that script of success to it. And I'm like still having to like pull those things out. I'm like in that process of like, like even with this podcast, I'm like, cool. I'm not necessarily doing it for like to have fame and fortune either. Like, no. Truly, like I think in our discussion, it was like, I'm down to do it if it just means like it'll potentially encourage people to have this same type of conversation. Yeah. That's it. Like,
I mean, you were saying yesterday you came across a reel that talked about how, there's not enough millennials talking about how hard life is.
Oh yeah, it was like some Gen Z person being like, where are all my 30-year-olds at? Saying how hard life is. And then this millennial girl pops up and says, don't summon us, we're too tired to talk about it. I was like, that is so true.
Yeah, so true. We can relate. Yeah. It's, I guess it's, social media hasn't ever really been our go-to. Just because, I only started using Instagram when I was already working in the corporate world. So like, I mean, who wants to see that? Yeah. But, I think for me, it's, it's what you just said about success. Yeah. That's really cool because that really does resonate with me as well. It's not success that I want. Yeah. Like in the sort of way that everyone sort of talks about elusive success. But more so, I just want to be doing things that give me joy, that make me happy. And I'm doing that right now. I'm working on a lot of projects, and I've working with a lot of people that energize me and excite me, but and it's more now about sort of fine tuning and making sure that I've got a consistent income and things like that. But I think just continuing to explore that, giving myself the grace and the freedom to be able to continue to explore that and without judgment and without the external pressure, and having to sort of define it myself and go like, ooh, are you there yet? Just continuing to just be in the moment, be present, and be okay with that this is just part of the journey.
Yes,
I think that's what I'm focusing on.
I love that.
I no longer have this end goal in mind of oh, I need to make X, $1 million, or I need to, have this possession, or I need to have this title, or I need to exit this company for however, $1 million, $1 billion or whatever. It's not that anymore.
Yeah, I love that.
That's not the marker.
Yeah. It's like if the things that we put our time and love and effort to are the things that we enjoy, and if money follows, great.
Right.
Amazing.
Ideal.
Yeah,
that's
ideal. That is maybe
money
the new
follows,
dream.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But I love that. It's like it's flipped a bit, right? It's like it's not the money
Correct.
that we're pursuing anymore. It's our joy, us being alive, flourishing, thriving.
Yeah.
And if finances come and find us in that place, amazing.
Yeah.
And if not, is that okay?
Okay,
your eyes are like
sorry, my eyes were shaking a little bit. You know what? I mean, I really do believe that if you're committed to doing something that does bring you joy, and you're smart about it, in the sense of you are aware and cognizant of the fact that you do need to create a business model around it. You're not just doing it as a hobby and keeping it from everyone. Do you know what I mean? You're not doing it privately. Then I think that it's inevitable that in time that money will follow, but you have to be patient. Things don't happen overnight. And we do need money in order to survive, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%,
so I'm not going to say, oh, it's not important, because I've got so much in savings that I don't need to work. But yeah, no, I think that it's also sort of, there's something to be said for pursuing things that give you joy, because everyone around me, whenever they see me, they say, wow, you look so happy. You look like you're, reverse aging. You look like, you just look so content and at peace and satisfied. And it's funny because, I'm not making nearly as much money as I used to 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago for that matter.
Yeah.
But I'm so much happier now.
I always say that too. Every time I see you, you look better. You look more.
I mean, so there must be something.
Yeah.
There, and I tell myself, well, that's why I don't regret anything. I don't regret the choices I've made, because, when I look at my mental, emotional, physical, all of my health in general, I'm so much better off now than I was before. So this has to be a good thing, right?
Yeah. The fruit of it's super good, for sure.
Yeah.
Your soul's, more at rest now.
Yes.
You're in that journey, right?
Yeah.
And it shows. And that's when you're in the right direction, when your body is showing it and when your friends and family.
Yeah. Maybe this is a good point for us to wrap things up for this episode. And in the next episode, we'll be focusing a bit more on what we've been doing to prepare for our futures, and how we've gone to apply this redefining of what it means to have a successful life. So thanks for watching us again, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Yeah, see you next episode.
Bye.